right? I think it also kind of creates a sort of sense of carrying on and on and on to the poem. We've also got this immediate introduction of the mind, thought, God, and the loss of God, right? When we have lost our God of tradition, that's the title of the section of this poem. The word God has always been blah, blah, right? And then this idea of the order of things as a violence. So those are things that you should be following throughout the rest of the book because they're going to come up. They're going to come up over and over again. Okay, let's read the second section. 2. And ceased from our God of rhetoric. But I don't know their names. Rust worked under each wing like sweat. Lunettes, synthetic, silk crest stitched to a white head. Small gears completely. Grease, preening, ash, mechanical, sheen of oil, charcoal. Only this description eats and screams, squanders territory. What use is it to see? Faith, the world is knowable? There are ways to understand, and none is living or lyric, limp or stutter. If I send a letter, the sudden utter other means than speech, when I don't know to love language other than to run a larceny, all machine and God likeness, gear and hinge, pocket watch, tie, pin, money clip and wing, tip, my father's impostor I am, then my words a mere guess at what isn't. It isn't mastery I'm after, it's certain other terms than my own I wait for instance, birds, without names, fly away, ceaselessly, up the ladder, cast from visible to invisible. It is it only seems there's a way to know the way? I think it's supposed to be like, is it that it only seems there's a way to know the way? Which is a confusing idea, right? These poems sort of spiral in on themselves, and the enjambment is really working to continue that feeling of sort of spiraling or folding back in on itself. We almost reach a thought and then we don't quite reach it. And then even here we have, is it that it only seems there's a way to know the way? And it's like, what, the way to know what way, right? In language is being questioned here in terms of knowing the way, I think. Okay, so let's do the third section and we'll talk a little bit more about the poem. Then may God fire with presence. And you can never catch it, nor make it still, and so it is like thought in this, or weather, that you might live within it, or by its constraints, but never touch it. And there is the sorrow, it will never know you, though you feel all winter the shiver of how it never hesitates in touching you. Or, said another way, it snowed all day and into the night. The view developed slowly like a photograph in a bath of chemicals that began as white, grew wider, by virtue of contrast until it seemed overexposed, so little shadow was left, like a sentence revised too often. What happens is the mind travels outward because it wants to be the soul it has heard tell of. Nervous work like a bird, sky, and power line, garbage can, underbrush, it goes to them. It intends itself toward oily black seeds, toward reflections, in ice and in glass, and it goes to the wind and is shut out, which is no one's home. Ever leave-taking, action is its only description. Each shadow on the lamplit street, seeming to rush, molting out of itself, each upward to snow, multitude of hurry, confusion, mid-air, to meet the idea that made it. Okay, so what the hell is this poem talking about? What is the it, is my question for you guys in this poem. What is the it in that very first line? And you can never catch it. right? Is it ideas themselves? Is it the mind itself? Is it this idea of the soul? You can never catch it nor make it still. And so it is like thought in this, or whether, that you might live within it or by its constraints but never touch it. So this idea of, I don't know, it's like it's not named. The thing that the poem is talking about is not named, and it feels unnameable, but it feels somehow spiritual, or I don't know, beyond matter, maybe, right? And I mean, we are talking about the loss of God, so beyond matter, I think, is an important thing to be considering in these poems. What happens is the mind travels outward because it wants to be the soul it has heard tell of, right? So this thing that we think, the mind thinks it's supposed to be the soul. And I'm interested in what he's saying, or what you guys think he's saying, that language, or how language is a part in this idea, and in spirituality, and also this concept of like matter versus the immaterial, which is a play in this book a lot. Right? Once thought, the word makes mind too small. And just before that, right? Mind locked in a long walk through the chill of a single word, so that like the word is almost confining somehow to the mind, and that once a word is thought, the mind sort of shrinks to the word size, or becomes finite somehow, rather than this expansive soulness that is described later, or attempted to be described later. So I feel like he's starting to explore this thing of language. I don't know, language giving form, right? But also restricting. Okay. I also wanted to look at the next poem, To Be Two. I'm not going to read the whole thing. Maybe just pieces of that third section, the veil. But I think this is going to be one of the questions in the discussion board for you guys. But I'm really interested in how the three sections of this poem, which starts on page 10, are meeting each other, right? Because they're all interacting with each other. And I'm interested to hear or read how you guys think these different sections are meeting each other, and what does that form do to enhance like the meaning and the ideas of the actual poem, right? Which is about to be two people meeting, or like a union, right? And it does feel like it's about love. The first line in that first section, certainty, is between two who love each other, there's no room for doubt, right? And then you have all these weird brackets. Then in that second section you have all these lines that are just followed by colons, and what comes before we don't know. And then we get to that third section, and the two are combined, and then what was once in the brackets, or removed and brackets inserted to replace in that first section, in the third section is inserted, the actual text, right, that should have been there.